The Portuguese Grand Prix was not exactly a hotbed of car updates. That's because it's a slightly unusual circuit where the teams don't have a reliable data set to look back on. But that's not to say that there weren't updates on the cars. Some teams actually made quite a lot of effort to bring new parts to Portugal just to be ready for the Spanish Grand Prix and the Monaco Grand Prix afterwards, because there's quite a lot of racing in quick succession now as the season really gets underway. But Red Bull were one of those teams to bring new parts to the Algarve circuit, and in the sunshine in Portugal we saw a great look at Red Bull's new floor. This is quite a big step for the team and should increase performance quite significantly, because they've changed the design. It doesn't look too much when you look at it like this, but the design is really quite different. These 100mm sticky uppy bits are completely different design and different layout to the original versions they started the season with, and then this long, almost horizontal but slightly triangular long sticky uppy bit meets the horizontal strakes and actually is linked to them. That really shows what Red Bull are trying to do with the floor. They're just trying to push that air outwards essentially in the midsection of the floor. But that's not the only upgrade that Red Bull made at the Portuguese Grand Prix. Of course, the floor is massively influenced by the bargeboard section just ahead of it, and the new bargeboards came along with the new floor in Portimao, and you can see that in Bahrain Sergio Perez had this shape of bargeboard. This is the initial spec, and quite similar to last year's bargeboard as well, whereas this new specification, completely new upward vane, completely different shape and section, completely revised floor, but also the Venetian blind section you can see is much increased than it was in the start of the season. Again, this is a massive step forward for the team, because the amount of work that will have gone into every single one of these components is huge. The team will have tried different numbers of slats in the Venetian blinds, different numbers and shapes of sticky uppy bits, and this is the solution they've come to, because sometimes it really is a little bit of trial and error in the wind tunnel to make all of these things work. And let's not forget, Red Bull has the oldest wind tunnel currently in use in Formula One. Another team to be playing around with the bargeboard section is Alpine, and actually these metal sticky uppy bits were just introduced on the edge of the cape, the undernose section, but it's really the leading edge of the bargeboard as well, and there's actually, you can't quite see it, but they've got some really neat metal teeth that come forward on that English-built French car. This is again all about just tuning the airflow around the front of the car. You can sometimes see people saying, or in magazine articles or similar, that these little sticky uppy bits will be worth 0.2 of a second or 4 points of downforce. Nobody actually knows that, because these small parts, you really need a CFD package and a wind tunnel and of course an accurate model of the car to understand what they're doing. What I will tell you though, that is all to do with the airflow to what's behind them rather than the airflow themselves. These don't generate downforce directly. One trend that has been spreading throughout Formula One since late last year, when it was introduced by AlphaTauri, and when I first saw it I wasn't entirely sure was legal, but I am assured that it is definitely legal, are holes in the front wing end plate foot plates, and that's this section that sticks out here. Now, a number of teams have started experimenting with this during the 2021 season. McLaren in Imola brought along this version, which you can see the dish section at the back, and there's a little hole in there, you can't quite see in that shot, that sticks through. That's quite an advanced variant of this idea, whereas you can see here with Alfa Romeo, they've got this little floor, this little hole in the footplate of the floor. This is exactly what AlphaTauri brought along last year, and you can see they're quite similar layouts between the footplates there. This is a section of the car that really is quite sensitive and has quite a big impact on the airflow, and this is the teams just exploiting a little loophole in the regulations, because I think when these front wing regulations were created, the FIA were pretty keen that there weren't lots of detailed slots and slits in the front wing end plates, but the teams have found an area where they can put one in, and that's exactly what they're doing. Really, really difficult to model that in a wind tunnel, because you're going to have to use something like CFD to get that through, or there's various techniques of visualizing flow within the wind tunnel as well. Some teams use dye, some teams actually fire lasers through vegetable oil of all things in the wind tunnel to be able to see what the airflow is doing around these sections. So that's what this development's all been done with. Is it a big difference to the performance of the cars? Possibly, possibly not. I suspect it's just another one of those small elements that helps the rest of the package all work together and just gets the balance of the car doing what you want. Just a little vortex here or there can make a big difference downstream. Sticking with McLaren and sticking with Imola, actually, the team brought a new rear floor to the car. This is an area that a lot of teams are experimenting with, the section just ahead of the rear wheel. As you can see in the Bahrain specification, the centre section, this sort of curved over sticky uppy bit, if you will, is much longer on the original Bahrain specification than the version that they tried in Imola. Now, it could be that different circuit characteristics need different rear floors, a bit like you have your different front and rear wing settings. I'm not sure, it could just be that is something they're going to stick with for the rest of the year. They did do a lot of flow visualisation on this new rear floor and the slightly feathered outer element as well. It is, I think, a development they're going to stick with, but we'll find out as the season goes on.